Hi all, welcome back to the channel. Today we're exploring something new, the world of cattle farming. In particular, we're going to look at the millions of longhorn cattle farmed in America and Africa. These amazing animals are famous for their unique horns and toughness. But did you know that the practice of raising longhorn cattle differs widely from continent to continent? The American and African practices show the vast extent of cattle farming. From the vast open grasslands of Texas to the harsh savannas of Africa, cattle ranching has made its mark in these regions beyond our wildest dreams. So if you want to know all the wonderful things that these cattle do, how they are cared for and kept, and why they are so important to the economy and culture on both continents, be sure to stick around and watch the rest of the video. Here we go then. Introduction of longhorn cattle. Before we go on to the practices of farming, let us pause to notice what makes longhorn cattle unique. Longhorn cattle are usually identifiable by their enormous horns, which measure 7 feet long. They came from Spain and arrived in the American continent during colonial times. It was with the lapse of time that the longhorns came to represent strength and resilience. Their ability to acclimate themselves to varied terrains, from the scorching Texan sun to the colder tracts of parts of Africa, makes them a necessary breed among cattle breeders. Now let's talk about why longhorn cattle are worth so much. Other than their size and horns, they are worth a lot because they are strong, can graze on challenging terrain, and possess good quality meat. They provide food, leather, and even cultural significance to the caretakers of the cattle in America and Africa. Raising cattle in America, Texas, longhorns. Let us begin our journey back in the United States, Texas. Texas longhorns symbolize American history, and they are associated with the cowboy culture. These longhorns have learned to live in the rough climate of the American Southwest and are raised on rugged grazing pastures with little care. In America, cattle ranching is a large industry. Texas alone produces more than 14 million head of cattle, and longhorns account for a large percentage of those. American farm practices are geared towards producing as much as can be grown, whether that is producing cattle for beef or dairy. Texas cattle ranchers usually depend on vast open spaces. The big ranches can be anywhere from a few hundred acres to a few thousand acres, and longhorns run freely in the big spaces. Here, importance is given to sustainability and allowing the cattle to naturally graze while using advanced technology to track and control their breeding and health. The U.S. cattle ranchers also utilize advanced genetics to enhance the quality of their herd. Breeding programs are designed for characteristics such as horn size, quality of meat, and disease resistance. All this ensures that the longhorn cattle remain an asset to be cherished, not only by the ranchers, but also the agricultural industry in general. Cattle farming in America, techniques and innovations. As we continue our journey through the history of American cattle ranching, it is worth mentioning innovations and methods that have transformed the industry. Rotational grazing is the most significant method of modern cattle ranching. It is the process of moving the cattle from one section of the pasture to another so as not to overgraze and maintain pastures healthy. It also allows farmers to give the cattle fresh pasture while ensuring the ecological balance of the land is not compromised. Aside from rotational grazing, most American ranchers are also using technology. GPS collars are commonly used to track cattle movement, keeping them in the right locations and allowing ranchers to monitor health and activity of each animal. This technology-driven method has improved efficiency and minimized labor in herding a large number of cattle. Also, water and feed management systems have become more sophisticated. With automated feeders and sensors, ranchers can monitor their cattle's diet so that they get the right kind of nutrition, thereby producing healthier cattle and higher quality meat. Data farming is another significant innovation. Ranchers can monitor cattle health data, breeding trends, and even weather conditions using sophisticated software tools and make well-informed, data-driven decisions that enhance cattle quality and farm efficiency as a whole. The future of cattle ranching in America is changing significantly towards smart farming techniques, and longhorn cattle are gaining cattle farming in Africa, a different approach. Now let's travel across the ocean to Africa. Cattle ranching in much of the continent is not merely a business, it's a lifestyle. How cattle are raised in Africa is mostly traditional one, and it is immensely varied based on the location and the culture of the area. The cow is kept by the society in pastoral conditions in countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. The cow is not only appreciated for meat and milk, but also socially and culturally. The owner of a specific number of cows may determine the extent of prosperity and social class in the society. Unlike the large American commercial ranches, cattle farming in Africa is decentralized and dispersed. Most farmers have only small herds, and the cattle are driven from one grazing ground to another in search of pasture and water. This transhumance is still common in most of Africa. It helps to preserve the natural ecosystem, since the cattle are driven around without overstocking the land. The farmer-cattle bond is also unique in Africa. Here, the people and the herds are closely bonded culturally. Cattle are sometimes considered family, and most of the tribes have rituals and ceremonies for their animals. In some areas, cattle are even employed as a medium of money during marriage ceremonies and other social functions. African farming challenges and innovations. Despite the age-old traditions, cattle raising in Africa is also plagued with more serious issues. Drought, water shortages, and epidemic breakouts can prove devastating both to the farmer and the cattle. There are fewer chances of African farmers accessing modern technology, and therefore herd management is tiresome. Efforts are still being made to enhance cattle breeding on the continent. Farmers in some parts of the continent are embracing more advanced methods, including controlled breeding schemes, to enhance the quality of their cattle herds. Veterinary services are also being enhanced, with focus being placed on preventing and curing diseases such as the foot and mouth disease, which can decimate cattle herds. Among these impressive innovations is how mobile technology is facilitating farmers' access to information and resources. For instance, apps that provide guidance on best practice farming, disease control, and veterinary care access are gaining popularity among African cattle herders. They are the missing link between traditional practice and recent innovation in farming. One of the emerging trends that is taking shape is climate-resilient livestock. Scientists and agronomists are developing heat and drought-resistant livestock that will allow cattle to survive and thrive in Africa's tougher climate. Thanks to this innovation, African herders have a better future for their cattle. Comparison of farming practices, America versus Africa. Now let us pause and compare the cattle ranching practice in America with that in Africa. While both continents have longhorn cattle, the practice is different. There is extensive commercial cattle rearing on a large scale in America. It is where efficiency, productivity, and profitability are the target. Technology is the driving factor, and farmers make use of sophisticated technology like GPS tracking, automatic feeding, and selective breeding schemes to maximize their herds. This is done to make the most of the cattle farms and produce quality beef. Conversely, African cattle farming is more communal and traditional. The herds are smaller in size, and the emphasis is on the cattle's health as much as it is on producing meat and milk. African farmers' problems, including disease and drought, diminish the predictability of cattle farming. Yet with these problems notwithstanding, African farmers depend on centuries of experience to survive in the environment. What's interesting is how the two systems are brought together by the very same species of cattle. While American agriculture leans toward technology, African farmers manage to adapt in their own manner, coupling new technology with very ancient ways to maintain healthy cattle and a sustainable community. The future of cattle farming. Looking to the future of cattle ranching, both in America and in Africa, several trends are in store that can possibly change the rearing of longhorn cattle. In the United States, the sustainability movement is picking up pace. People are increasingly concerned about where and how their food is being produced. This movement is making American ranchers more sustainable in their practices. Rotational grazing, regenerative farming and carbon footprint reduction are becoming more common in American ranches. In Africa, the future of cattle production can be a balance between innovation and tradition. Although the traditional and cultural dimension of production shall never be removed, there may be new technology and approaches which can help the farmers combat difficulties they face, like in controlling diseases, lack of water, and land loss due to excessive grazing. But in spite of the variation in farming, one truth is certain: longhorn cattle are an integral part of farming on both continents. From the plains of America to African grassland, these great animals will continue to be an essential part of feeding the world. The economic and cultural significance of raising cattle. Beef cattle ranching has been a part of rural livelihood for centuries, affecting economies, culture, and communities across the globe. In America and Africa, longhorn cattle are not only raised for milk and meat, but also prized for their strength and durability. The cows are resilient enough to endure the worst weather conditions, which makes them ideal for Texas open plains and African savannas. Apart from economics, cattle embody tradition and wealth, especially in African societies where they take center stage in social rituals. With changing methods of farming, the two continents are still seeking harmony between modern development and age-old traditions in cattle farming. And that's all for our excursion into American and African longhorn cattle ranching today. From the wide-open ranch lands of Texas to the more communal and traditional African farming systems, the way that these incredible animals are raised is a tribute to the diverse landscapes and cultures from which they originated. Whether high-tech or low-tech, one thing is certain: longhorn cattle are a vital component of American and African agriculture, influencing economies, cultures, and communities as well. We hope you enjoyed this glimpse into cattle farming methods. If you did, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what you found most interesting. And if you have a question or comment regarding longhorn cattle or farming methods, feel free to leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.